Hey everybody, and welcome to my podcast. Wow, this is something that I can feel I'm nervous. This is something that I've been thinking about doing for like such a long time. I actually started a podcast for like 5 years ago or something. I did the first episode and I felt really like I didn't feel confident in myself enough to publish it. So I asked my guest that I had on if it's okay that we didn't publish it. And we didn't publish it. Yeah, she's amazing, by the way, and I will bring her back on now that I'm actually doing it again. I feel much more confident now, and yeah, so that's good. But for the people who don't know me, and for I guess for everybody who have decided to either view this or listen to this, this episode right here is to give an introduction of like a small introduction of myself and then a small introduction of the podcast itself, like why I want to do this and what you can expect and how you can engage in forming this podcast to be what it's going to be. As I'm sitting here right now, oh, this is so weird. As I'm sitting here now, I've already filmed, or like I've done some episodes. So this is actually not the first episode, but I will publish this as the first episode. But I just wanted to get some experience first and to showcase to myself that I'm able to do multiple podcast episodes before I launch it. So if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, it means that yeah, this is going to happen. And I have already planned the other episodes, which I will which you can find in the description of this video or this podcast. Yeah, I'm actually a bit sick right now as I'm filming this, but today I don't have any guests, so I thought it would be okay. And there's also something pretty beautiful about being sick. I want to tread carefully here, but like in the way that I'm sick now, like because I'm not super sick, like my, what do you call that in English? Like my nose is, like you get it. Like it's hard to breathe through my nose, and I might have like a small fever or something. I can feel it like some pressure in my head and it hurts from time to time, but overall I'm doing good. I just have to take it slow. But the beautiful thing about being sick, I think, is that often when I'm sick, at least, and I'm not sick that often, so I'm really grateful for that. And I have many friends who like that they are like more sick than they are not sick, if that makes sense. So yeah, like having that in mind when I say I am grateful for being sick, I'm firstly grateful for not being sick all the time. Yeah, but when I am sick, it makes me reflect so much about life, and it makes me understand deeper how lucky I am, I think, to somehow win the lottery of life. First of all, being here in Norway, we will come back to that. But also, like when I am in Norway, that like I'm mostly healthy all the time, and I know that not many people are healthy all the time. So yeah, and that makes me really think about how lucky or privileged I am, and how when I am healthy, when I'm not sick, when I feel like amazing, that I should really use that time to do good. But yeah, we'll come back to that. So for the ones who don't know me at all, and for everybody, my name is Martin. My full name is Martin Sombongwong Skadal. I was named Martin Skadal until I was like 18. Then my parents divorced and my mom got her last name back, which is Sombongwong. So now I'm Martin Sombongwong Skadal. But since I've used Martin Skadal my whole life, I basically just say Martin Skadal. But if you look at my handles, it's often like Martin S. Skadal. So then you know what the other word is. Anyways, name is not that important, or like, yeah, whatever. I'm born and raised in Bergen, which is the city where I'm still in. Bergen is the west coast of Norway. It's amazing. I love it here. We're the city surrounded by 7 mountains, and it's raining all the time. But that's okay. I love rain. But it's not really raining all the time. Anyways, oh damn, this is gonna be a long introduction. Hold in there. Oh. But yeah, so uh, to tell my life story pretty quickly, when I was 12 years old, I decided to join the special forces, or like I decided that I wanted to join the special forces in the Norwegian army, because I remember learning about like World War II and so on, and learning about like Hitler, Osama bin Laden, and different like terrorists and so on, and terrorist groups. And I remember I wanted to be in the special soldiers so that I can be protecting people from bad people, something like that. So from 12 to 18, I was training myself physically and mentally to go into the special forces in the Norwegian army. Then fast forward till I was 18, I got some, like life got really tough around at that time. And yeah, one thing is that I get some allergies as well, which in itself made me like, then it's not possible to go into the special forces, which was really sad at that time, at least. And like a lot of things happened. Like I've been playing in a band. I'm a heavy metal drummer. I've also been a Buddhist monk. And I also grew up Christian. I also grew up in a really multi-religious and multicultural neighborhood, which was really beautiful. Like meaning that like there were around like 15 houses in that street, I think, and I think there were only like 1-2 houses maybe where like everybody was like from Norway, but other than that we were like from like Thailand, China, like Sri Lanka, India, Poland, Germany, like different places, which is really nice. And I think like for me, I started from an early age then to just like care about others in some way, especially when I learned in school that like we human beings treat each other in different ways. And I knew from growing up with my like friends that like even though we have like different religions or different like colors of our skin and so on, that we all just want to go out in the streets, play football and have fun. So when I learned about us human beings like discriminating based on skin, religion and so on, that was super wrong. So I early in life cared about humans. But yeah, so all in all, my childhood was pretty okay, I would say. And my family, for just a little bit of context, is like it's me, my dad, my mom, and my little sister. I love my little sister so much, and the rest of my family, of course. But yeah, so until I was 18, or like until I was 17, I lived at home, and and then right before I turned 18, my parents divorced. So around that time, it was also the time I got the allergies and so on before entering the Norwegian army. So it was a lot of bad stuff, like bad externally stuff happened to me, I would say, and I didn't handle it internally good. So when I started to feel that life is becoming really, really tough, I I didn't talk with people about it. I like just to give you a super short like look into how day in the life of like Martin 18 could be, is like waking up early, going out of my house so that my parents thought I was going to school. I never made it to school. I just went into the woods or something. Like I did something different. So my friends at school, they thought I was laying in my bed and just doing nothing, and my parents thought I was at school. So like I didn't talk with nobody about how I really felt. So yeah, I woke up early, went out of the house, went into the woods or something, and then when the school was over, I went back home. But again, I never made it to school. Yeah. So, and I did that for like almost a year, which made me kind of drop out of high school, or like I didn't show up enough at classes, so I didn't get my like certificate, or like I'm not sure what you call it in English, but like I couldn't go on and study in a university because I didn't have the papers for it. So basically, high school dropout. Yeah. Mm. And life was tough from like around 18 to 20 or something like that. Um, and it took some time for me to get back on track, I'd say. But after around 2 years, I remember I was traveling with work at that time. Like I tried a lot of different jobs. And one time I traveled to London, and I found this book, which is called Are You Fully Charged by Tom Rath, I think. I will link it below so you can see it. But yeah, it was a good like self-help, self-development book. Nothing like spectacular, I'd say, but I think it just like really, like for me at that time, it just really hit me. So I read that book, and then I really felt, yeah, that it did hit me. And then I read a lot of similar books. And after some months after that, I actually started to feel good again. I've been reading books about how to improve yourself, and I've been trying to, as good as I can, to follow those advices. And I started to begin seeing like improvements and so on, which was really nice. I appreciated that big time. I then one day remember that I was just walking down the streets of Bergen, and I felt happy. And I was like, why am I feeling happy? I was thinking. And like, this is weird. Like, I don't deserve to be happy, I thought, or something like that. Like, what amazing happened today? And I was like, nothing. And then I think I realized that, like, oh, like, maybe I'm just out of that dark world which I've been living in for the past years. And I think that to be true, because after that I was like feeling amazing. Relatively to how I felt like earlier, at least. And it was so funny, like, you know how they say when your glass is like half empty or half full, but whatever, and then when your glass actually gets filled up, and when like you get so much in your glass that when it spits over, you kind of have like more energy and like more, yeah, like energy to give to others, more love maybe. I really felt that, like I felt that when I was in a good place myself, that altruistic feeling, like the feeling of wanting to help others, just really came back. So then I kind of tapped into my earlier state of like, because my earlier state was about wanting to become a special soldier in the army because I wanted to protect people, right? So this time I kind of got into that mindset again, and I was like, okay, so I want to protect people. Like I realized again that like, damn, like I'm living in Norway, and I have no idea what I've done to live here. Like I'm just super lucky, I feel. Also, like right now I'm not religious, I'd say, or you can say that I'm like seeking, or like I'm just open when it comes to that. But yeah, so like my mom, which is Buddhist, for example, she would maybe think that I did something amazing in my last life, and that's why I was born here right now. But yeah, for me, which is not religious, I just don't have any clue of what I've done to deserve to be born and raised in Norway and in a beautiful family. Also being healthy most of the time. Again, I'm sick today, but that's okay. I'm not very, very, very sick. Okay, so then ASAP, when I felt more energy and love and like compassion towards towards others. Yeah, I also stutter a bit, by the way. So throughout this podcast, you will probably hear me stutter from time to time. I did it more when I was little. I still do it at times. So yeah, hang in there with me. I hope it's okay. I can of course edit it out as well, but I also think it's kind of just a part of life. Kind of like it as well. So I wanted to do good for human beings again. And then I was like, okay, what can I do? Because I cannot enter the army because I have my allergies and my past. So it's like, yeah, let's not do that again. And as well, I think I changed my views a little bit on how helping humans, like maybe it's not the best way to go into the army. Like that's like one option in some way. But I wanted to see more of like how can we help human beings. So in order to understand how we can help human beings, I had a long time of or like I made space in my life. So in order to do that, I actually moved back into my mom's place, yeah, living on a couch there for some time because I had to quit my job and then I got like less money and so on. So I did that in order to use a lot of time on doing research on human rights, like how do humans suffer, basically, because I wanted to figure out the different ways in helping human beings. And I read a lot about really tough stuff, tough stories from all over the world. And again, really understanding how damn lucky I am be living here in Norway. And that was also like it's pretty hard on your mental health, I'd say, to read through all of that. But of course, it's even harder to actually be in those hard situations that I'm reading of. So at this time, I'm like trying to take care of myself so I don't fall in back into like that dark space which I was in. But then I'm reading so much about like human suffering and so on. But I knew that I was on a mission again to try to do like the most good that I can and like figure that out for myself. And one thing which is a bit funny here as well is that I didn't do super well in school. I was okay, I would say, until like high school, when my life started to fall apart a little bit. Not like nothing super big, but like a little bit. Here I am at my mom's couch and I'm trying to figure out how to do the most good, like, and trying to figure out how human beings are suffering, right? And I remember reading about like poverty, hunger, about, yeah, like war and so on. And I also remembering reading for the first time more about climate change. And like here I am like around my early 20s, or like I think I was around the age of 20, like exactly, where I for the first time actually learned about climate change. So I read about like, or like I maybe knew some about it, like almost everyone do, but I never taken the time to actually understand it. So here I am, Martin, like myself, around 20 years old, learning about climate change. And I go deep into this climate change thing, trying to understand it. And especially because I originally only care about human beings. Like that's what I really cared about. So I try to figure out how climate change is affecting human beings. And I see that there are actually like in short, the people who are already suffering the most in the world, which is the group of people I think I would love to help the most. Like I would rather help people who like, okay, if you have a scale and you say that like some people are living at 0 and some people are living at 10, where like if they live at 0, they're basically going to die like really, really soon. They're like really suffering. And then people at 10, that's like wealthy people here in Norway who actually their mental health is also like doing really well, and they're just like they're living in this like amazing paradise, right? And then you have like many people in between, of course. But I would rather help somebody from 0 to 3, let's say that, than helping people from 5 to 8. Meaning that I think that I would try to help people who are really, really, really suffering, than helping people who have their basic rights, but that could need more money or more services to be better. Does that make sense? But all in all, I'm actually not sure how confident I am in saying that, because if I figure out that my personal fit is to help a lot of people from 5 to 8, like if I find out that I'm actually capable of doing that, but I can only help like a few people from 0 to 3, then I think if my overall impact would be like on a larger scale, helping people from 5 to 8, then I would probably do that. Did that make sense? I'm not sure if that makes sense. Please let me know. Yeah, oh my god. Okay, so when I talk, like I I think about this podcast is also I want to be better at talking. I feel I'm not I feel I have a huge potential in improving the way I talk about things. Like I want to be somebody who is good in explaining stuff, because a lot of this podcast is going to be about the complexity of the world issues, and my goal is to really try to understand that better, and also to teach others about the state of the world and the state of different world issues. So please, if I'm saying something on this podcast like I just now did, or that I'm going to do in the next episodes, and you're sitting there watching me and my guests, or you're listening, if you're thinking, what are you talking about? Can you please let me know? Yeah, because I really want this to be like a community, and I think in the start now we're probably gonna be like a realistic guess is like maybe like under 100 people would probably hear the whole episode of this, I think. Maybe I will have a few more views, but I'm not confident yet, at least, that it will reach that many people. So I am, now that I'm recording this exact episode, I really kind of want to, if I can, like take care of that small community in which we start in right now. So yeah, so please let me know if you have any feedback or suggestions of improvement and so on. Yeah, I love feedback, and if you're afraid that you will hurt my feelings or something, then it's better for you to just say what you're thinking, or write it instead of holding it back. Yes, and I really mean that. Yeah. So if you okay, whatever. I think you got it. I don't want to use much time on that. All right, so back to the story then. So I was then thinking about how we can help human beings best possible, right? And I learned about climate change. And when I went deeper into climate change, I found out about, or like, I wanted to know what is causing the climate to change. Like this global warming, what is causing it? And I remember going into animal agriculture a lot because in a lot of the reports that I was reading and so on, they referred a lot to animal agriculture as like using a lot of resources in a maybe not that efficient way. Meaning that like one really common thing was that people and organizations and institutes and so on were recommending that we human beings have to cut down our like meat consumption and so on. But at this time, I was also eating like a lot of meat. I think my favorite burger was a burger from a gas station. Yeah, there you go. Random fun fact, or not that fun fact, but anyways. So when I read about this, I was kind of like, okay, not how sure I feel about this, but I wanted to go deeper into it and understand it. And one of the things that I was stuck with was that the numbers were so high, and they were talking about like so many animals, but that are like they have to use so much resources because there's so many animals in animal agriculture, and that's why it's some were saying that that animal agriculture was some of the leading parts of climate change. But what stood out to me was that if it's so much resources used, and it's because of all the animals, like where are all the animals? Pretty like stupid thought, maybe. Like I felt kind of dumb, and that's okay. I really like to feel dumb sometimes. Actually, then it makes me curious. Like, okay, probably like there's something here I don't understand. So instead of just classifying myself or the facts as like stupid or dumb, I wanted to go into it to understand better. So I went into climate change and animal agriculture, reading a lot about that. And then I saw these huge numbers about the animals and realized, aha, like it's this like mass production, like factory farms and so on. And of course, like they're not in the city, and I live in the city. So of course I haven't seen them before. But then when I went in more into watching how the animals lived and so on, I kind of felt a little bit that like, that doesn't look so good for the animals, I guess. But like whatever, like everybody's eating animals, so of course I'm still gonna continue to do that. But when they say reduce your meat consumption, I'm like, sure, like I can reduce it a little bit, I guess. But I don't want to cut it out. And I also remember talking with my friends at this time, then like they kind of knew that I wanted to do something about like helping the world, but I didn't know how. And I remember some conversations where I told my friends that like, yeah, like some of the best ways you can help climate change, for example, is like to stop eating meat. But like I'm never gonna do that, because I know many people do that, by the way. But like, but I really want to figure out how I can do the most good. And I feel that people that cut out animal products from their diet, that's not like the best thing you can do. Yeah, but it's like one thing you can do for sure. So I went deeper into it and tried to like really figure out how can I do the most good. And I was researching so much. Like it was kind of crazy. So then after that, I did what some people think is a bit interesting, but then I became a Buddhist monk. So I went from getting a lot of external information to getting a lot of internal, or like to only working internally. Because when you're a monk, you're like you're not supposed to like like be on the phone or like distract yourself that much. And I was trying to live really like clean, so I lived without my phone, my computer, and trying to really just do good as a Buddhist monk. But for me, coming into that period, I was thinking so much about world issues, and I'm really grateful for the time as a monk, because when I was a monk, I used a lot of time to reflect and process the information. And I made some plans. Like one thing, like I don't remember if it was right before I became a monk or right after. But then for example, when I learned about like fast fashion, I told myself I will not buy new clothes. Or actually, at first I looked into my closet because I was thinking like maybe I'm going to stop buying new clothes, or unless I really need it, of course. But I was a bit afraid of making that personal change. So I went into my closet and I was taking a look, and I was like, yeah, like I have so much clothes and I'm not going to get any higher, taller, I guess, higher. Anyways, so then I was like, okay, I can totally just stop that. That's an easy choice for me. But as well, I remember also, at that time, like which is now my ex, but like so so back then me and my girlfriend decided to become vegetarian together actually. So I know, like, even though I was really about I'm not going to become vegetarian or vegan and stuff like that, like I felt just like the urge of doing everything I can to do the most good. So I knew that like cutting out animal products is like one thing, but that there's many other things. So I didn't want to stop at like just not consuming animal products. But I did that, or like went like vegetarian, and then I told my friends again, like, hey, I'm vegetarian now, like I'm sorry, or like that, like, hey, like I know I said I wouldn't do it, but here I am. I feel this is the right choice for me to do. And then I remember we laughed a little bit, and somebody was saying like, okay, but you're not vegan, right? And I was like, no, 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 like I'm never going vegan. Like that's crazy. Like, yeah, crazy people. Anyways, just to get to the point here as well, some weeks after I learned more about veganism, and I learned more about the ethics as well, which I will go much deeper into later, but not in this episode, I think. But in short, I felt I really expanded my compassion for like all animals. That maybe sound weird, but that also it's so amazing. Or like I love saying that, because I think it's so beautiful to like expand like your compassion to other human beings, to nature, and to other animals and so on. Like if I would have like a pig as a pet, or like if I personally know a cow, I think he would be my bro. Okay, that's very okay. Whatever. I don't want to sound crazy, but I want to tell you my truth. Okay, that's what this is about. This podcasting, and if you listen so far, I think, yeah, like I should respect you as a listener or viewer, friend. To that I'm really trying to be just honest here. Because I also think that's the best way to get real feedback, when I can really be myself, or like try to practice to be myself and say what I'm actually thinking of, trying to not hold back, try not to give you too much filters. But sometimes it can be really hard to be self-aware of that. But yeah, and I'm also unsure sometimes about how maybe playing the game of society is smart versus just being yourself, if that makes sense. Like some things that I joke with friends, or talk with about friends, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable talking about on the podcast. I hope I will be. I think that's the way I want me and humanity to move forward in, I think. But yeah, that's another conversation for another day, I think. Anyways, so when I was a monk, there was many things I was thinking about. And one thing being that, yeah, I just cut out animal products. So, and the Buddhist monks that I was living with, they ate animal products. So of course, like that was one of the philosophical, like religious conversations that I had a lot with them in there, and it was really beautiful. I really love talking about life with them, and reflecting with myself. And it was not only animal rights or like those things we talked about everything. So I knew that I was going to be a monk like only for one summer, so it wasn't like a really long period, but of course it was enough to go deep. Like, yeah. And I made a plan when I was a monk. So I figured out that at that time, the best thing that I can do to help the world become a better place was to learn from the people who have been working with improving the world for many years. Meaning that I contacted, or like I made a plan that when I was done being a monk, when I got back to my city in my normal clothes and normal life, I would contact all the organizations in my city in Bergen, Norway, working to protect nature, animals, and humans, and I would ask them if I could volunteer for them and learn from them, because I want to know what they think are the best ways to improve the world, basically. So, and that's when a totally new chapter of my life started. which is this journey of content creation and everything as well. Because I remember I documented my journey a little bit on social media before. So if you go to my Instagram feed, you don't have to do this, of course, but you can scroll down and you will find a period where I was a monk, and you will find a period where I'm volunteering for the first time in a lot of organizations and so on. And if you go back then as well, you can also see me eating like sausages and like eating animals basically. And you can see me party, I guess, and playing a band. And yeah, like I have not deleted a single photo on my Instagram, I think, actually. I have changed my opinions on a lot of things, and stuff I loved to do before, I don't prioritize now, or I don't even like now, or even now I think that would be horrible actions to do if I did them now. But I still love my past self, if that makes sense. And I want to be open about that. So yeah, so if you're here to cancel me, there are probably a lot of things you can, well, not a lot of things, but like you will find me eating animals and like show it in my face right now if you want. But yeah, like, yeah, that was a joke, I guess. Oh, you can laugh if you want. No, okay. And anyways. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that was a totally new period of my time. And I just want to mention one thing as well. Oh, and I guess you've already seen it. Like I'm really not that good in just talking about one point at a time. Like my brain, like I have so many thoughts coming up all the time, which I just want to talk about and tell you about. So yeah, I think that's amazing. But I think it's also like I need to work on my focus. Yeah, then a lot of things changed, and when I contacted these organizations to like volunteer and to learn more and so on, I like, yeah, as I mentioned, like I started my content creation stuff like more seriously. And at that time, it was because I was following a guy named Gary V, or Gary Vaynerchuk, for some of you that know him. And I was like binge watching his content for like 2 years, I feel. For you that don't know who that is, like to say it short, how I view him is a really kind guy who talks passionate about the power of content creation, basically. So like he runs a lot of stuff. He runs like a company called Vayner Media and so on, which have, or at least had, clients. Like, because I haven't consumed his content in a while, so I'm not sure like what's up now. But like he had clients as like Pepsi and like Under Armour and so on, like pretty big clients. And what I loved about him is that when he had meetings and gave talks and so on, he would publish that stuff, or like some of it at least, for free on YouTube. So I could watch him having meetings with like high profile people about like marketing strategies and so on, which I thought was so cool, because like it would cost so much to attend one of those talks, and it would cost much more to attend one of those meetings. And it was not like just a podcast episode. It was like actually meetings between people who are experts in different types of marketing, and then just like documented. So it's not something they created. And he talks a lot about back then, at least. I guess he still does, but I'm not sure. He talked a lot about documenting versus creating, meaning that if you want to make content, think about what you already do and try to just document it, instead of trying about creating something cool, maybe like about like what will my followers like, or my listeners like. Just document what you're already doing. And that still hangs in with me today. So regarding this podcast, for example, I still want to just document something that I really want to do. And that is, I really want to have long conversations with people I think are really interesting in some way and have a lot of knowledge about specific topics within world issues. And I just want to document it so that you that are listening or viewing this right now, that you, if you want, you can join in. Like, you can also be here in the room, but like maybe you're making food, or you're working out, or maybe you're just sitting and listening, you're chilling. So like, yeah, like I want to invite more people into these, which I think is important conversations. But anyways, I have to go back. This is so hard. Okay, so if we then go back to when I was monk and then I wanted to volunteer in all the different organizations, then I also thought about, let me document this journey. Like, let me really document this. So when I joined the first like animal rights organization, which I think was Animal Insight, they were called, which now they're called Grønn Framtid, or it was NOAH. I'm not sure. Those are like Norwegian animal rights organizations, anyways. And when I joined Friends of the Earth, Norway, Naturvernforbundet, for those that know, I documented all of that on social media. So I started to attract like people who were into those kinds of things, which I kind of thought were kind of nice. And yeah, like I think I became volunteering like over 15 organizations, like at the same time, actually. So people started to call me like full-time activist and so on. And I kind of didn't know what they were talking about. But like, of course I understood, because I'm trying to use as much as time as possible in like, at that time, at least volunteering in these like non-profit organizations trying to do good. And then I just learned a lot from them. But then I thought, well, like, yeah, and then at the same time, I was growing my amount of followers on social media, especially on Instagram at Skadal, which you will find me, or probably you came here because you follow me on Instagram. I don't know, because on YouTube I have like 1,000 subscribers, I think, and that's like, I haven't published a video in like 2 years, and now this channel will only be about the podcast, I think. But anyways, and yeah, and if you listen to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, this is my first ever, so like I'll probably have even less subscribers there, or followers. I'm not sure what they're even called. Then I volunteered for a lot of organizations for around like 6 months, I think. But after that time, or like in that time, I started to miss a place where I could work for nature, animals, and humans at the same time. A kind of network organization or something like that, at least. So I tried to find that, but most of the organizations that I could find were working specifically with like environmentalism, animal rights, or human rights. But to me, they were also connected, and I really wanted to work with all of those. I didn't want to specify and go into only animal rights, or only environmentalism, or only human rights. So it was at that time I then started to think about actually maybe starting my own organization. And I talked with the other organizations, like, is this kind of a good idea, or like, does a similar organization already exist? And the most common answer I would get is that it's really hard to build an organization that is working so broadly. But of course, as an entrepreneur, which I've been like since I was kind of 12, but yeah, I didn't go into that. We can go into that later, maybe. But I really felt that like, yeah, like I think I want to start something here. And when people tell me that like it's hard or something, that kind of ignites the energy within me. I'm like, cool, then like it sounds like a challenge. Let's do it. So I did that. So now we're in 2017, and I started, I was 23 years old, I think, and I started World Saving Hustle, which is a network organization fighting for nature, animals, and humans. And in the beginning, I got a lot of people around it backing it up, which was really amazing. And at that little time, I actually thought this is going to be easy, actually, I think. But now, 5 years later, 5 years later, yeah, I would say, yeah, it is pretty hard, and we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do it. But we have received governmental funding here in Norway, and yeah, like I'm really trying to figure out how we can do the most good with that organization. And this podcast is also a way for us to go deeper into the topics we work with, and for me as the leader to also, yeah, like really understand where like where the next steps might be and so on. And also, like in 2020, I started an organization called Altruism for Youth, or renamed a previous organization because I had another organization in the past, which were called Team Skadal, and we were only again, actually, because of that Gary V guy, he had his team called Team Gary V, and then when I started to grow on social media, some people were like DMing me, like sending me messages, wanting to help me out. So we created this like internal small like Team Skadal, and they helped me with my content creation and so on, which I really appreciate. But in 2020, we wanted to reframe that. I also didn't like that it was called Team Skadal, because every time I have to say it, I'm kind of like, this is like an ego thing, I think. Or like, it can't sound like that, and I'm not sure if it is like that, like it could be. So to just be clean, I just want to rename it, and also to do something not just for myself now, but for others as well, even though increasing the team to the production of, for example, this podcast and so on will help others, like, because the aim of this is to help others. Anyways, because of COVID in 2020, we renamed that organization from Team Skadal to Altruism for Youth. And we decided that we want to focus on something specific, because with World Saving Hustle, we're working really broad. And I wanted to test out how it is to run an organization who is more specific. So with Altruism for Youth, the second organization I created or made, we decided to focus on mental health, and especially mental health for younger people. So I talked with some amazing people in Norway who is working within that spectrum. We figured out that there was a need for in short, we figured out that it was a need for more mental health work in Norway, especially amongst younger people. So now we have got together like a different team, like some psychologists, some doctors, nurses, like approximately like 50% of the team is like people within the health sector, and then 50% is like people who have experience with mental health in some way themselves, or like either that they themselves have gone through some really tough times, or they are going through some tough times right now, or they know people closely who have been, or who are, so that's kind of it. So that kind of makes me want to say that, like, or like give you an overview of like right now in 2022, I kind of use some of my time on Altruism for Youth, on that mental health project, which we have, where we, by the way, like we have one specific thing, like we want to build an app that's going to be for free for everybody to use forever, which will in some way, we're not sure yet, like it's really, it turned out to be really complex, but in some way help younger people to understand themselves better and to implement like tools and tricks in bettering their own mental health and feel like more, as we say in Norwegian, livsmestring, like that you feel that like I got this, like I can handle life, and like life is beautiful and so on. We want to make that easier for younger people. But like, so hopefully we will go much more into depth about that. But I gotta say that is a really hard project that I'm working on. It's been 2 years, and as a leader, I feel that it's been taking way too long in some way. At the same time, I'm happy that we like haven't given up, or that we're still trying to go through the obstacles which have been given to us and so on, and that we have created ourselves as well. So I feel I learned a lot from doing that project. So hopefully we'll go much more in depth into that later. So we use some of my time there, and then I use like a little bit more time on World Saving Hustle, because that's a bigger organization. But I can say both of the organizations have governmental funding now. So that's really good. Thank you, Norway. And for all the members and all the volunteers, and like we made it. So that's good. With World Saving Hustle, we actually just had our annual meeting for like 3 days ago, I think 2 days ago perhaps. And I'm really stoked about what we're going to do. We just had a new board elected, which was amazing. I'm still the leader, so thank you for voting me in as a leader again. Appreciate that. And I am really stoked to show the world and show our volunteers and members like what we're going to do. So yeah, I'm going to use a lot of time there. Right now we have like 2 campaigns, or like I can tell you in short our focus area for like this next period of like this next, from this annual meeting to next annual meeting. We will continue with a campaign we have on stopping whaling in Norway. We will continue with a campaign we have on deep seabed mining in Norway. We will have an extra focus on this year actually like increasing our local chapters and members. We kind of never had a focus on that. Like in the early beginning we did, but now we want to increase that. Because we also want to hire more people to actually work in World Saving Hustle. Right now we actually have 4 part-time employees in World Saving Hustle, I could say, or like, I'm not sure if employees is the right word, because in Norwegian we call it frikjøpt, which means like, or like, that it's people in the board of the organization who, like, instead of having to have like a part-time job on the side, we're giving them like a little bit of money, like not much, but like, so it's kind of a part-time job, if that makes sense. But like we really want to like hire people full-time and so on, but then we have to grow. So yeah, so that will be one focus. And then we will have one focus on really taking care of our volunteers. I would say when starting World Saving Hustle in 2017, self-care has always been something which has been really important to us. But even though it's really important to us, and we've had like workshops for like self-care for our volunteers, and like we've done a lot of like social things, and people think often of social things and is a self-care thing because you're not directly doing activism all the time. And our social media content has also been about like self-care, as well as other stuff. And we also had an own team self-care in the organization. But even though we've had this focus, we're still experiencing that like multiple of our volunteers are experiencing like burnout, or at least, or like, yes, absolutely like burnout, but also really close to burnout. You can see the fatigue and like people not being at their best. So we want to try to go even deeper into that. So like for the people who really care about doing good, we want to really take care of them, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's also one focus we have. And then the last focus is that we will create our first World Saving Hustle conference in 2023. Yeah, that's going to be amazing. So that's that. But then most of the time I use on this project, which is just life, I guess, or like Skadal, like, which is like my Instagram right now, which has also been my job the last like 3 years or so on, where I've got like just enough money through like influencer deals and so on to not needing to have another job. So I'm really grateful for that. But right now I have also decided to not do that many deals. So this is actually the first year where I'm taking a salary from Altruism for Youth and from World Saving Hustle to focus less on my social media work and more on the organizational work and so on. But yeah, but also just to be like really transparent about that, I think. I can say like how much I get, which is like from both of those organization each month, I get like around €1,000 or $1,000. I think they're approximately the same right now. In Norwegian, it's like 10,000 kroner, which means like, so that's from both of your organizations. So now I get like 7,000 kroner or like €2,000 or $2,000 a month, which is probably like the lowest leader salary in Norway right now. like it's not much, I guess. In some like in Norway, that's like not much money. Ask any Norwegian, they can tell you if you're not Norwegian. But if you're Norwegian, you kind of get that. but I also know that like if I would take that salary and move to like where I have family in Thailand, for example, I could live as a king basically. But yeah, so in my context, that amount of money is not that much. And also I've seen that now that I'm focusing less on social media, I also get less social media requests, like to do influencer deals. Meaning that like I don't have that much money to play with, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's also something I'm working on. But like, so with World Saving Hustle and the other organizations, like with Altruism for Youth, we hope, of course, to get more support so we can. So I have a strong bias in like increasing my salary, of course, but also to like be able to hire more people. On that note, I can also just say that the first full-time the full-time employee we hired in World Saving Hustle and Altruism for Youth was somebody else than me. And I think that was also because I got enough from social media at that time. So but which was around like $2,000 a month approximately again. But then I was living a little bit cheaper. Yeah. But yeah, then as soon as I could take a full salary, I didn't do it. And I also think that's just like a healthy way of trying to live, I think, because I'm for World Saving Hustle and Altruism for Youth. I really want to figure out what's best for them and their mission, and not for me in it as well. But yeah, if that makes sense. So right now and in the time ahead, my focus is going to be still Altruism for Youth, World Saving Hustle, and this Skadal project, or like me as an individual, kind of. And the podcasts will be one of the main things for that, I think. So if you follow me on my social media channels, you will probably see most of this content in the time ahead. And I think that's a way that I can go deeper into Altruism for Youth, World Saving Hustle, and my own stuff, and have something which is like binding them together, because the podcast episodes will be, or like the people I want to talk with are people who are into environmentalism, animal rights, human rights, mental health, and like so on, for me to get a better understanding of those things. And I also want to do that because I think I'm kind of doing a round 2 of what I just explained of my like past have been. So like that time right before I became a monk, I feel I'm doing that time again now, meaning like I'm really trying to get a lot of external information again to really go deeper into the world issues, because I've changed my mind on a lot of things, and I view the world issues more complex now than I've done previously when I first started to learn about them. It's kind of that thing, where the more you know, like the more you learn about something, the more you understand how much you don't know about those things. So yeah, that's kind of funny. And this is one example that like we work with deep seabed mining, for example, in World Saving Hustle. So one episode you will hear is with a guy named Pedro, and he works with deep seabed mining, or like not deep seabed mining, I'm sorry. He is a researcher on the deep sea. Yeah. So me talking with him is something I really want to do anyways, right? Because I work with that in World Saving Hustle. But I think it's so beautiful to have that conversation over podcast so you can learn about it as well directly. And also because, when you're listening to podcasts, or you're watching a documentary, or you're reading a book or something, we human beings are taking that information in different ways. Like if me and you are watching the same documentary, and if I am asked after the documentary, what is your main takes of this documentary? I think we will both have different things. Like, of course, around the same topic, hopefully, because then the documentary did a good thing, I guess, in telling what it's, or like explaining what it wants to explain. But it would be somewhat different. So when I know that in the conversations that I will have on this podcast, I'm sitting here and really wanting to ask questions to understand how I can better improve the world. When they answer, I will sit there and probably nod a little bit and be like, oh yeah, I understand that, or I understand some of that. And hopefully you that listen or view to this will also understand something which fits you better, right? So I think that's a really nice thing to do collectively. Yeah. Um, and when I say that, I also want to say that I think that in the first 50, 100 episodes perhaps, you will mostly hear me ask questions and really try to listen, really try to listen and understand what they're saying, where they're coming from, why they say what they say, and so on, even if it's conflicting with what I currently think. Like knowing that I'm vegan, for example, and that most people are not vegan, I know that many people will probably say something which goes against my values, kind of, or like goes against what I currently think. But I am inviting people to come talk about what they really are passionate about. So I also feel that, at least in the beginning, it's not my space to kind of counter argument, or like instead of doing that, I really just really wanna listen and try to understand. So I hope you're in it with me like that. But yeah, like, because I really want to understand this like podcast format, how it is to talk with people one to one over like up to like, I guess most of the episodes will be around 1 to 2 hours, maybe some less, maybe some longer, I'm not sure. But yeah, like I really want to give space for me and for the listeners and viewers, like to really understand. Yeah, to try to do that. Like I want us to challenge what we're currently thinking. But of course, I also want to challenge the guest a little bit at times. Like you would probably see that. It's hard to hold back, I guess. Yeah. But again, if you're like, damn, like, did you just let them say that? Like you should have said something, or like you yeah, like please, like give me feedback. All feedback is good. If you also really enjoy, I would also love to know that. But don't just say you enjoy just to be kind. Well, like some of you can do that, but like, oh, I don't know. One important thing to mention is that what I do is also driven by something called effective altruism. To explain that a little bit, because a lot of the guests that I will have will be about effective altruism in some way. But like, even though it's not many people who have heard about effective altruism, I think, but it's kind of really agreeable, the term effective altruism. So if we take altruism first, which is also a word I'm probably going to use a lot, and I'm probably used it somewhat now, I think. Like altruism is just the opposite of like egoism. So ego, as many know, is like really focused on yourself, right? And kind of only yourself. But like altruism is about helping others without expecting anything back. So I would call that everybody who does good for others, they are altruists. Like they are doing altruism. So even if they're helping animals, nature, or humans, they are altruistic people. Like they do altruism. And effective altruism is just basically how could you most effectively help others. And effective altruism is both like a mindset, and it's some like, or there is like organizations called effective altruism working specifically with this, but it's also just a mindset. Like it's just like, if you identify as like an effective altruist, you're just saying, in my opinion at least, that you are somebody who is trying to figure out how you can do the most good. And I've always been telling since I was like almost 12, I will try to find out how to do good at least, and then in my 20s how to figure out how to do the most good. When I found the effective altruism term, I was like, damn, that's so cool. Like that makes so sense for me at least. So I love that. and yeah, I'm also attending a lot of these like effective altruism conferences and so on, and there I will also talk with a lot of people about what they're doing and how they are viewing what they're doing as something which is effective for the world. um yeah, but in general, when I talk about language here, like I always tell to my friends and so on, like just so you know, that I have a really bad vocabulary and I suck at talking, or like suck at explaining myself. I have bad words, like, or wording, like, yeah, like that sentence right there. Like, what the did I just say? Yeah, so I will always try to explain words which I know are not that knowable, or like, no, yeah, here we go. This is a good example. I'm not sure if that's the right sentence to say. um if I'm unsure myself, or I'm unsure if the followers will know what we're talking about, I would probably ask, like, what do you mean? And I know, and sometimes I would probably actually some guests will say something, and you will probably know what that word means, but I will be like, what does that mean? Because I actually don't know. Like, it's something weird, but some of the more technical words that I have learned many times, they just fall out of my memory. Like, I know there are a few words, at least in Norwegian, that I actually have to just ask again and again and again. And I'm not so sure about that. Like, why doesn't it sit in my head? Um, anyways, yeah. So also in the beginning of this podcast, many of the episodes will be like 101s, which like meaning introduction to stuff. Like, we will have one introduction episode of existential risks, like what that is. And we will have some, or like, no matter the topic in the beginning, we will have like some introduction to it, I guess. Some of them will become really technical, and some of them will not be. I will try to keep the not that technical in the beginning, at least, like for my own self, as well. But also because, like, I want people in Altruism for Youth and World Saving Hustle to also be able to listen to these episodes when we go deeper into some of the topics which we are working on. Yeah. I can also say that this podcast will be both in Norwegian and English. Like, this specific, like the one you're listening to right now, all the episodes coming here will be in English, but I will also have one Norwegian one, which I will also link in the description so you can find that. So, and that's because, like, I normally talk Norwegian, but since I've somewhat decided to go international and to try to reach as many people as I can, English is better than Norwegian. But when I want to talk with experts which also speak Norwegian, I want to talk with them in Norwegian. Yeah, and I live in Norway. I want to have a local or like national impact here as well, and understanding. And I also think that if I can understand politics and how stuff works in Norway, like if I can stand altruism in Norway in a really, really good way, that I will be able to transfer that to my hopeful like international work later. And if you have guests that you want me to have on, which you think would fit, please let me know. I would really appreciate that. And we will also do multiple like Q&As, I think, so we can go deeper into and just like building that community, as I think is powerful to have. I can also say that, like, right now, I don't have any like sponsors or anything for this podcast. But if you would support me in doing this project, which I especially now would really appreciate, there are like kind of three ways of doing it. If you live in Norway, then I think some of the most stuff, or like some of the best things, would be to actually become a support member for Altruism for Youth and World Saving Hustle. That only costs like 50 kroners a year, which is like $5 like a year, which is like basically buying me a cup of coffee one time a year. I would really appreciate that. I will have the links below. But that's only if you're in Norway though. But like if you're international, but if you're in Norway as well, then I will actually start my Patreon again now when I'm doing this project. So I had a Patreon before, which helped me so much. But then when I got more money from a social media, I told my Patreons that now I actually get money from social media, like not much, but I actually do get money there. So I don't really need your money anymore. So if you want to stop being a Patreon, that's totally fine. And then like 90% of my Patreons disappeared, which I think is absolutely like what I was expecting, kind of, because I said that I didn't need him anymore. But now I have gone through my economics, and my salary, that is not that much. So a little help in the beginning, I would really appreciate that. And I think the lowest amount you can give is like $1 a month or something. But you can give more, and you can always change it. So I will leave a link to how you can donate to me like that. I can also mention, if you want to give like bigger sums or something, then just send me a message. And you can also set up like bank transfers, because I think Patreon takes around like 10% in total or something. So yeah, anyways, just so you know. I feel the most important to say about this podcast is more like a little bit more about like why. Because like now I actually went like a little bit deep into like my story and so on, as you heard. Of course, it's still a super short story when thinking about how long life has been. But it's still like 1 hour about my story almost. So more about like the why of this podcast. And it's because I really want to talk more with people in depth about different important world issues. It's to understand better, and it's to become better at like sense making around the complexity of the world and the world issues and so on. And it's really for like me personally, I just really feel that I want to figure out how I can do the most good. And in order to do that, I think it's really important to broaden my perspective of like world issues and how people work with it, why people work with it. Because I know even within like environmentalism, or even within like animal rights and human rights and so on, there are people like disagreeing on like what is the best way to work, right? And it's so easy, I think, to kind of stumble into a bubble of where people really agree with what you say. So in this podcast, I want to have conversations which is a bit challenging as well. Like I want to talk with people about things I currently disagree with them, but I will mostly just sit and listen, not just like ask questions to really understand, and to hopefully like understand the complexity of the world a little bit more. And I hope that you that are watching and listening, that you can kind of take part in the same, as I previously mentioned a little bit. And again, like these are conversations that I really want to have anyways, but doing it through a podcast makes space so that more people can tune in, which I think is pretty cool. Like one of the reasons that I want to do this podcast is because I really feel that I like personally like am in a place where I am almost like too lucky. Like I live in a very, very safe city, or I live in two cities actually, but yeah, I live in like very safe place in Oslo and Bergen, like Norway in general. And my health right now is also super good. Or like right now I'm a little bit sick, but anyways, and I feel that that is really my responsibility to help like balance the world a little bit more. Like again, like I have no idea what I did to be born in Norway and to have good health. Like, and I know so many people, like so many of my like friends, but also so much of the things that I read online and learn about is people and nature and animals that are really suffering. And if I were born in another country which is not as good as Norway, I think I would beg even though I'm not religious, but I think I would really beg or hope that somebody that are in a better position would do their best to try to help, and that they would just not live normal life, if that makes sense. I want to tread really carefully when I say that, but like I hope you understand like where I'm coming from, that like I'm really realizing it again how lucky I am, I think. So that's why I want to make a lot of my time the next years to having long, in-depth conversations with people about the complexity of the world issues, and also to understand some world issues that I've never heard of or that I don't know much about. Like we're going to talk about like the deep sea, what's in the deep sea, why we should protect it, and so on. We're going to talk about refugees and the refugee crisis. I just learned that there's around 20 million climate refugees every year right now. Yeah, and we're going to talk about animal rights and specific ways of helping animals, like factory farming. We're gonna talk a lot about that. We're gonna talk about like art and philosophy, for example. We're gonna talk about weapons of mass destruction, existential risk. Yeah, like there are many topics we're going to talk about, and I have many guests. I have so many guests that I want to talk with. But if you have suggestions as well, please let me know. If you for some reason have listened and viewed this, if you somehow have listened and watched this whole first episode, I want to say thank you, because then I guess that you somewhat care about nature, animals, and humans in some way. But if not, if you like only care about me, like maybe you're like a friend or family or something, then you do care about humans at least, because I'm a human. I'm also an animal, so then you kind of care about animals too. But yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I hope that this can be an interesting journey together. I have no idea of where this will go, what I will learn, what we'll talk about, but I think it's going to be amazing and beautiful and cool. Hopefully together we can learn more about how to make this world a better place, how we can help nature, help animals, help human beings into living a greater life, and that we will look at the future and be like optimistic and think that we humans exist here on Earth can actually be a beautiful thing. I really hope that. Right now it doesn't seem like that in everything. Like some things are going amazing, some things are going horrible. That's how it is. But yeah, I also wanna just really quickly, like all the people that have supported me in choosing this way of living, because it's not been that easy to change from going to like that special soldier thing and like my normal life and like being in sales and everything, into going to this altruistic journey. So yeah, thank you fam, like for supporting me, and I mean my family, but also my friends. Thanks to everybody in World Saving Hustle and in Altruism for Youth, for being here with me, trying to do good in this world. I really hope that this podcast project will also help us in our work, which I think I've already mentioned. Anyways, I'm still a bit sick, so I will focus on getting healthy. And also, Candace, I want to thank you for being my creative partner in this. Yeah, so for the people that don't know, Candace is my creative partner, meaning like that it's not only me who is producing this podcast, it's me and Candace. And yeah, so I just want to say big thank you to you as well, and appreciate all the work you've been doing in helping me doing this project, because yeah, we have been working with this for like some weeks or months, and it's finally so cool to see this coming to an end, or not to an end, to a beginning, I mean, or like that is happening. You get what I mean? Yeah, thank you, Candace, and I'm grateful to have you along here in the journey. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This was the first episode, and really looking forward to the next episode. Yeah. Okay, see you next episode. Remember to subscribe or follow or wherever you are leave a comment. I don't know. Check out the link in the bio and no, in the description. Maybe in the bio too. I have no idea what's in the bio right now when I publish this. Anyways, I'm not gonna just ramble. Thank you again so much, and hope to see you next time. Bye bye.